welcome back to Born to Cook with Christy. Today we are making a really easy chicken and broccoli casserole. You just need some shredded cheddar, brown mustard, mayonnaise, a little bit of onion, and a rotisserie chicken, and then some broccoli, clearly, and then I use a little chicken stock to cook my rice in. So that's what I'm getting done first, is putting enough, well, according to your your minute rice directions, enough to cover the bottom of whatever baking dish you're going to use. I didn't use a super big one because it's just me and Joe, and we'll have it for leftovers for tomorrow night as well. But of course, just boil your stock before you add your rice. And then I have a pot of boiling water in the back to cook the broccoli till it's fork tender, which doesn't take that long. So here I'm just going to trim up the broccoli and get them into florets. You should probably do them a lot smaller than I cut them up. But, patience is not something I have. So I just try to get my knife through it a little bit, just so that it's not grossly huge. And you can see these crowns were quite small, so I had to use two of them. And then I just put them in the colander there so that I can rinse them when I'm done. But I don't go crazy with it because I know I'm going to be putting them into some really hot water. So if there's anything in there, it's going to die. But this is really fresh broccoli. I was really impressed. Usually when I buy broccoli at my market, there's some yellow in it. So I was really excited that there's actually some really green, fresh broccoli. So I bought those two crowns, and then there's another crown in my refrigerator for another night. So anyway, break them up as much as you can. You can see I'm in no rush. I'm too busy talking to my husband while we're doing this. As is often the case, I get distracted easily. So here I'm just going to rinse off the broccoli a little bit, just for any loose dirt that might be in there. And then from there, I'm going to throw it into the pot of water, which, again, because I'm not patient, is not quite boiling. But I did add a little salt to season. Usually I like to add the salt once the water's boiling, but, it's me. So I'm going to put broccoli in there and just let it cook until it gets fork tender. You don't want it going into the casserole raw, because then it'll never cook completely in the casserole. Everything else is pretty much done by the time you put it in the oven. So I put the rice into the chicken broth, and then from here, while the rice is getting tender and the broccoli's cooking, I'm going to slice up maybe a quarter off of a big Spanish onion. I believe it's a Spanish onion. Because that's going to go into what's called the frosting on this casserole. So depending again on how much you're going to make of this, I used about a cup of mayonnaise. Any mayonnaise that's your preference, except for Miracle Whip, because that would be way too sweet. Although I don't think that's really considered mayonnaise. Maybe to some people. Not in my house. Anyway, so about a cup of mayonnaise. And then usually the recipe calls for Dijon mustard, but I didn't have any, so I just used a little bit of the spicy brown. So maybe about a tablespoon of spicy brown mustard. I wouldn't go heavier than that because it is salty. And you can see I'm adding pepper to this, but I don't add any additional salt because the shredded cheddar, the mayonnaise, the mustard, they all have salt in it. So it would be way overwhelming if you added more. And then, of course, a little bit of garlic powder, which you can see I made a mess trying to pour it. I didn't feel like dirtying another dish. I don't have a dishwasher, so everything's done by hand. I didn't feel like doing another one, so just maybe a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then you're going to grate this little tiny sliver of onion. It's maybe a tablespoon of grated onion if I were to measure it. It's not an excessive amount. Again, you don't want to taste onion running through it. It just, a little bit of flavor is all you need. So I'm going to scrape that off the back. And then obviously you're going to want to stir this all up to combine it. Excuse me. And here we go. add to this about two cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I think that's a 4 cup. Yeah, it's a 4 cup bag, and I added probably a little bit more than half, in all honesty, just because I get a little overzealous. And then once that's all in, you're going to want to stir it up again really well, and it does become almost like a frosting consistency. Um, yeah, so make sure that you really get that mustard and all through that. You don't want to glob. But I kind of smush it. You can see I stir and smush just to make sure that there's no globs of mayonnaise. Because once it goes on the casserole, it's there. You don't really get a chance. So then, of course, I clear out my little workspace here and grab my chicken board. This is a rotisserie chicken I had just bought that day. And again, I have issues with meat on bone, so you can see I stay away from the bone as much as I can, and I only get the white meat. And then of course, you're going to take this skin away because no one wants to chop down on that. But a nice, I'd say, probably 2 chicken breasts if you were to do this with actual chicken that you wanted to cook at home and not the rotisserie. 2 decent sized chicken breasts should be just fine. Again, I'm going to take off the skin, and I believe I found a vein somewhere. So you can shred up the chicken if that's what you like. I prefer it kind of diced up because I think it looks nicer in the casserole if there's some chicken and broccoli kind of peeking out the top from under the frosting. See, there's a vein. I gotta cut it out. I know I waste a lot of chicken, but my husband will pick through the bird later and get all the excess, and then he'll make a sandwich with it or some chicken salad. But I can't because now I've seen that. I won't get any closer to the bone. All right, we're almost done with this. So, get your rice that should be now tender. Or take your time, Christy. There we go. And there's my dish. It's not a 9 by 11 or 8 by 11. It's the size smaller than that. Of course, I spread olive oil because we know I have issues with cooking spray. Only use it as needed. And then just coat the dish. You don't really have to worry so much about it sticking. Nothing's really, there hasn't really ever been a problem with it if I ever get. So the rice, just make enough to coat the bottom of your baking dish and maybe give it a ½ inch up. But just a nice thick layer. It doesn't have to be super thin. And you can smush it down if you want to, but I don't really see the point. And then you're going to want to get your broccoli. It should be steamed and even brighter, prettier green now. Yeah, look at that. That was some good broccoli, wasn't it? Anyway. So clearly this is another layer. And then just kind of spread out the broccoli a little bit. You want to make sure that anytime you divvy it up, everyone gets a little bit of broccoli and a little bit of chicken. Or a lot of chicken. And spread that nice over the top again, just so that everybody gets a little bit of everything. And then take your frosting. This is where I realized I didn't turn the oven on, so you won't see me put it in there. But you're going to get a lovely view of me taking it out of the oven. So just make like you're icing a cake. I put 2 big spoonfuls on there and then spread it around so that pretty much everything's covered. I try not to go too close to the edges because it will bubble over a little bit, and that's no fun in an oven. You can put a cookie sheet under it, but I think I managed all right without it. And then I just clean up the edges a little bit. But you can still see some broccoli peeking through there in the chicken. And then you're going to want to pop that in the oven at 350. And it's about a ½ hour's time. I put it in. You can see it's not even hot yet. I literally just turned it on. Can you really not videotape me like that? My pants were done. Bacon at 350. I'm sorry. I just had surgery, so my abdomen's still swollen and sore. So the pants come undone. But so that's it. After 30 minutes, you can see the cheese has melted and is brown and bubbly. And the broccoli, is still tender. And the frosting has melted and it kind of mingles with the chicken and the broccoli. And in some cases, it reaches down to the rice. But the rice is still very individualized. It's not like clumped together. And I let this sit for about 5 minutes maybe, just to get a little bit cooler before we dove into it. But you can see there's rice and broccoli and chicken, and then the fabulous cheese on top. I like when the edges get all crispy like that. But there it is. That is a easy dinner for a quick night. You can actually meal prep that before and then pop it in the oven when you get home from work. Again, about a half hour. So if you like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and leave me a comment if there's anything else that you want to see or not see. Bye.